Welcome to Surviving Dad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today we've invited some of the women of Iowa's National Guard to talk about their role in the military. It's increased as well as much more powerful and responsibility than ever before. By some this is considered a big change, by others it's about time. These 5 members are joining us throughout the show to share a little bit about what they've experienced and what you might be able to see of the military that we don't normally get a look at. Let's start with Lieutenant Colonel Sonia Finch and First Sergeant Sarah Robinson to see what they have to share with us. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Sonia, you've been in the military for a while. How long now?
24 years.
How did your career begin?
I chose to enlist when I was still in high school, and I knew I wanted to serve, and I knew I wanted to fly for the Army at the time, and chose to enlist before I graduated from high school.
And Sarah, how about you?
I've been in for almost 21 years now, and I decided to enlist because I wanted to follow in my dad's footsteps. He was in the National Guard in Boone, and that's something that I also wanted to do, was serve our country.
That's a pretty interesting thing, because for me, when we first talked about the show, I was really impressed with how dedicated the Iowa National Guard was to bring in women. I mean, how many women are in the National Guard in Iowa now?
Well, in total, there's about 7,000 people in the Iowa and Army National Guard here in Iowa, and about 16% are female.
Which is how different than when you started?
You know, I'm actually not sure what the percentage is, but I know that it has actually grown quite a bit in the last 24 years. I know I've witnessed it and I've seen the increase for sure.
Now, for someone like me without much military experience, it's surprising to me, because I think sometimes I even carry an inherent bias. You know, I'm surprised at what women are doing in the military. Mm-hmm. What do you do?
I'm an aviator. I flew for the Army, and then I have switched to the Air National Guard, and I fly for the Air National Guard now as well.
That's fantastic. And Sarah, your role?
I am a Public Affairs First Sergeant.
And that gives you the opportunity to do what with the military?
Well, we pretty much tell the story of the Iowa National Guard through photos and video. We have broadcast journalists and print journalists, but it's my job to make sure that they are all trained and properly doing their job. I'm in charge of the Public Affairs Detachment on Camp Dodge, and I use my expertise that I've gained over the last 20 years to help them learn tips and tricks on how to be better journalists.
Now, what do you feel like are some of the most common misunderstandings of people, especially young people growing up today, looking at the military or the Guard, and a young woman looking at the Guard? You know, what are things they just don't know about before they take a look?
I think for one, I think a lot of young females don't realize the opportunities within the military. I think they probably look at it seems to me anyway, as I talk with young females, they don't realize how many opportunities there are. They think that they're restricted to only a few career options, and they're very surprised. I love going to talk to young Girl Scouts and wearing my flight suit and showing them that I've been an aviator and a pilot for so many years and all of the things that I've done, and they're usually amazed because they have no idea how many opportunities there are.
And actually your role as a mom and everything else are still there. You have a family?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What's that been like, to be on the military and have to deal with things like being away from them for a while?
Well, I think overall you have to find a balance with whatever job you do. But obviously being gone from home for significant periods of time, especially for my children, is difficult. I waited till later in life to have my children, simply based on the deployments and the cycles and the busy schedule I was holding. However, I think it's always a matter of finding that balance in life, and it's difficult to leave your family, whether they're young children or your husband or spouse or just parents, and trying to find that balance.
And that would be the same for a man in the military, I would think.
I think so, yeah. I don't think it's necessarily any different. I know we always say mom guilt, but I'm sure fathers have the same guilt if they're gone away from their family for long periods of time.
What's the world like working in the military for a woman? I mean, does it feel like you've had to buck some trends and work a little harder to get ahead, or has it been pretty easy to move through the ranks and get up there?
I think every time that I talk to some of my other female colleagues, we've all earned our ranks and promotion. At the beginning, we were bucking some trends just for the fact that we chose to serve our country. It wasn't something that was as popular when we enlisted back in the 90s, But now, with the way that we're raising our youth, it's becoming more and more common that gender stereotypes just don't have a place anywhere in the workforce, especially in the National Guard. So we're able to not have as many stereotypes and be able to all put our thoughts together regardless of gender.
Well, I think I'd like to get a point of view about life in the military when you have to get far away, and thank you for sharing these points. We'll look forward to getting back to that after the break. You know, deployment, often far from home, for both men and women in the military is an important and challenging responsibility. When we return, Sonia will be joined by Major Carrie Lewis to talk about deployment and family. See you after the break.
Many teenagers don't understand the dangers and effects of marijuana use. Now it's time for Just the Facts, ma'am. An IQ is a score determined from standardized tests to determine intelligence. An IQ of 100 puts the average person in the 50th percentile of intelligence. Regular marijuana use during teenage years can cause a long-term 8-point drop in IQ. A loss of 8 IQ points drops them to the 29th percentile. For more information, go to drugfreeiowa.org.
After Kylie used coke, she stopped caring about school, friends, or who she had to steal from to get more of it. The story of addiction is all too familiar, but you can change it.
Sleeping in, Dad?
If you or someone you know is in recovery from addiction, share your story with the partnership at drugfree.org, because your story can change someone else's.
Hi, I'm Carnell. If you're like me, you spend a lot of time online, streaming shows, downloading files, and Skyping with family. That's why Mediacom recently boosted many of our internet speeds at no extra cost. We call it Always Faster Internet because we're always improving to meet your needs. And when you combine improved speeds with hassle-free Wi-Fi, you get super fast speeds all over the house. So more gets done even faster. The power to make a good thing even better, the power to simplify.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're joined by Lieutenant Colonel Sonia Finch and Major Carrie Lewis. And we're going to talk about deployment, an aspect of the military few of us could ever experience in civilian life. Thank you very much. Welcome, Carrie. Just before we talk about deployment, you know, we had a chance to both see a presentation about gender roles and this idea that women grow up being princesses and men grow up being heroes. Now, obviously, women in the military changes that altogether. Have you noticed that kind of a gender shift in terms of men's attitudes towards women as time goes on in the military?
So the fascinating thing about the military is that there's no princesses and heroes. I think we're all heroes, meaning that women have just as much work ethic and teamwork and team building and competence and strength and heroism that any man does. And one place that you really do see that is during deployments and during times of extra stress, where everybody just comes together and you just can't believe how much you can accomplish together as a team, where everyone is a hero.
See, that makes a great point because it's hard to wrestle with the idea of being deployed in civilian life. Mm-hmm. You know, people will do things like, well, can you go on this trip? Or are you available? Check with the family. But you don't have those kind of choices. When there's a deployment, it's a responsibility you have to fulfill.
That's exactly right. And so my first deployment was to Bosnia in the early 2000s, and that was, I was married at the time, but no children. Second deployment was to Iraq in 2004, and I did have a child. And so I had that exact thought was, and my husband was deployed at the same time. I thought, how in the world am I going to do this? How can I leave my son at home? But you just get through it. I mean, the mission comes first, and you survive. Sonia,
take us for a walk through like maybe your first deployment when you're home and you have a family. The first time when there's family involved, mm-hmm. You know, for me it feels like okay, you're probably just sitting there having a meal, and next thing you know, you get this news. How do you break it to a family member? How do you get ready for something like that?
I don't know that there's any way to ever fully prepare, especially your family members, for it. My father was in Vietnam, and so when things started escalating in the early mid-2000s, I think they all assumed that I would probably be leaving at some point. But I don't think it still helped when I had to go tell them that I was getting ready to leave. And so even though that was expected, I think it's just the initial reaction. There's probably no way to fully prepare for it other than just discussing and making sure everyone understands that you probably will have to leave.
Now, your children, do they get better at it as time goes on?
My children are very young, and so I've been very fortunate. My deployments were all prior to my children being born. But I had family, I still had the same situations to deal with while going on my deployments. Parents still don't want to see their children leave. And, sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews, it's still a very emotional time, whether or not they are your own children.
And a scary time, because deployment also implies that there may be risk involved.
Absolutely. Particularly when they don't necessarily know where you're going or what you're doing. I mean, my family may know what I was doing, obviously, as an aviator, but it's still the fear of the unknown because you're leaving.
And you can't always disclose
Correct.
everything you do. Now, you're headed soon to Bosnia, so you're now preparing to go on deployment.
So I'm actually going to Kosovo, yes, but I'm taking my family with me. And so that is a great opportunity for us to have new experiences, and my son and my husband are very excited about going as well.
Is that something new that the military is doing, where you can bring your family?
It just depends on the location. So obviously, if you're going to Afghanistan or Iraq, you wouldn't be able to take your family. But so some locations and then some duty assignments, you are allowed to take your family. Mm-hmm.
What kind of life can you look forward to being there with your family? I mean, do you have like free time? Can you go tour and visit, do things like that?
Yes, we're very excited about traveling and getting to know the culture. We lived in Europe before, and so we're just very excited to experience new places and travel new places and meet new people.
So the military is very, very, very sort of comfortable for people to build families and deal with all that stress. What are some of the downsides? I mean, what kind of things can people encounter that just are hard and there's no easy way?
I personally think just getting used to the ops tempo, and especially if you're looking outside of the military for a spouse or a partner outside, making sure that they understand the ops tempo and the requirements, because even when there's no deployments in place, there's still, for a lot of positions, still travel involved.
And you say ops tempo. Translate that
I'm sorry,
for me.
operational tempo, meaning having to leave and go other places to actually do your job. So you can't necessarily do it from home.
Okay.
And so whether or not it's to an official deployment location, it still means being gone perhaps away from your home. And just trying to make sure that you're maintaining that balance and trying to maintain as much time at home as you can, making the home times work.
Carrie, is deployment common in the Iowa National Guard? Is that something that a large percentage of people in the Guard do?
In the Iowa National Guard, our major mission is domestic support. So a lot of times, if there's flood duty, that's when units usually get mobilized.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thanks, Peter.
We know there are a lot of challenges that all members of the military face. After the break, Sarah will join us with Master Sergeant Stacy McLaughlin to talk about balancing full-time jobs, family, and this new National Guard. Stay with us. You don't want to miss this.
You may have heard about synthetic drugs in the news and the fact that more Iowa teenagers who use them are ending up in the hospital. Synthetic drugs can be dangerous, but you can help prevent the threat. Learn about synthetic drugs and talk with your kids now. For sale does not mean safe to use.
Get help at drugfreeiowa.org.
Thousands of businesses have switched to Mediacom Business for fast and reliable internet, unlimited nationwide calling, and popular TV channels with sports package upgrades. And now, with our new business mobile data, they stay connected on the go. Mediacom Business is the simple and easy way for businesses to get all their telecommunication services from one provider, all for just $99.95 a month. Get a free mobile hotspot device with all 4 services. Mediacom Business. How can we help you?
So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice. And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
We couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're now joined by First Sergeant Sarah Robinson and Master Sergeant Stacy McLaughlin to talk about how they balance work and family lives and some of the challenges that come with pioneering new roles for women. Welcome back and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
What's it like? I mean, did both of you start families a little bit later to accommodate being in the military?
I definitely did, Peter, and it's funny that you use the word balance. And at home, we call it balancing the diamonds, because as a first sergeant, you get this responsibility. They call it a diamond. But then I also was given a diamond by my husband. So you have this balance constantly going on, and you need to learn how to give the attention to what you're doing and be present. That's one of the biggest things I can find. When you're on duty, be present in your roles and responsibilities as a first sergeant or a leader. And when you're at home being mom and wife, you need to be present in that situation also.
So if you were at home being mom and wife now, would you be just a little bit more laid back, slouching, not dressed up as fancy, things like that?
I would not be dressed up as fancy, but we definitely have a certain way that things are done because my spouse and I are both first sergeants.
So you have a military home.
We have a military home, definitely.
Now, Stacy, how about you? What's your family like, and how does it work with you in being in the military?
It's a little bit of chaotic sometimes. I only have one child, so that makes it less chaotic. I didn't start a family until later on in my career. I didn't really ever thought I would have children, but I decided to give it a shot, try it out. And then my husband, he's also in the military full-time, so we juggle, military work on drill weekends. It's kind of a struggle figuring out who will watch our daughter while we have drill weekend. Sometimes it works out where he gets to stay home and then I go to drill weekend, but we make it work.
Well, then you have to go right from drill weekend back to another job.
Right, yes.
So I would suspect that drill weekend doesn't sound like it's easy.
It's definitely not easy. It's 2 days of constant work, roles and responsibilities. And what we were saying on the way here, we were talking about how difficult it is to work a full week, work through the weekend while trying to find childcare, and then work another week. So oftentimes when your employee says, I have drill weekend, it's a taxing weekend for that individual.
Mm-hmm. Now, both of you have been in the military for how long?
I've been in for almost 21 years.
I'll have 15 in January.
And 15, and I think that's one thing we talked about a little bit before the show, that you sort of built into family and everything in the military. But we also heard that there are a lot more women getting in the military now that are single or have non-military partners as a career. Has that changed a lot since you've been in? Is it a different kind of woman in today?
I think from where I stand during drill weekend, there's a lot of females they're putting off maybe their family for a short time just so they can pursue all the opportunities that are offered to them that would be easier to do if they didn't have little kids at home. So they're kind of taking advantage of all the military has to offer early on in their life, so they can just take advantage of everything like for them.
That's a point that makes me think, as we haven't talked about it yet. Is the military a great place to get training and build a career and learn skills for a woman? Probably for a man, for sure. We always thought about that. If you needed to become more educated or learn a skill, you go to the military. What's it like when you look at the military? What kind of jobs do you look at in career tracks?
Well, I think we can both agree that you don't stick around for 20 years doing something that you don't love. Mm-hmm. So the National Guard afforded me an opportunity to learn about journalism and do something that I'm passionate about on a drill weekend. It's a great part-time job, but then also you are seeing a lot of young females in this new generation. They can do it all. You know, when I got in the 90s, it was a little bit less significant. Now they have a choice of any career field that the military has to offer, including combat arms.
Stacy, what do you do in the military? What's your role?
I'm a geospatial intelligence analyst. And so
Wait,
that
what's
was...
your geospatial intelligence analyst?
Yes.
That
So
sounds pretty cool.
It's looking at imagery, studying it, and then we have a customer who we will fulfill products for when they request them. So it wasn't my first career choice, so if you do get into a career and you necessarily don't like it, you do have the option where you can pursue a different career. So before that, I was knowledge operations, and that just wasn't a right fit for me. And though I had the opportunity to try something else, and I really do like what I do now, under a weekend mostly.
So when I was growing up and you went in the military, you know, people thought, well, once you get in, whatever track you pick, you're really stuck and you either stick it or get out. But it sounds like the military is pretty sensitive to letting you explore career options and making sure you're happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a happy soldier or airman is actually going to be more productive. I mean, we're all humans. It's the same as if you worked at a corporation somewhere. They want us to be in a job that we love and doing that on a drill weekend as opposed to forcing us into something that we might not appreciate.
Well, and even your Air Force, your Army, but you started Army and you started Air Force. And that was the natural thing that can happen if you work with the Guard.
Yes, we're sister services, which means that we can go back and forth. So if you're someone like me, I actually started Army, went Air Force for a couple years, and then came back to the Army because of promotions that were available during that time.
That's fascinating. Thank you very much for sharing these insights. And after a short break, we'll invite Stacy and candidate Elliott to join us and share their ideas about the National Guard as a career for women, professional opportunities, and a little bit more about the special challenges women face when they sign up. Don't miss this. Children see magic in the world around them, and parents see the dangers.
There is hope for the future if we face it together.
Find out more about how you can protect your children from the risks of illegal drugs, prescription medications, and alcohol.
Go to drugfreeiowa.org.
I'm Quinn. At Mediacom, we believe customer service should be as simple as possible. So simple, in fact, you don't even have to dial a phone. All you need is our mobile care app, and you can request a call from a customer service agent, manage appointments, check for neighborhood outages, look up account info, and even reset equipment. And the best part, the mobile care app is absolutely free. The power to connect, right at your fingertips. The power to simplify.
You wouldn't walk through the halls of your school naked, yet without thinking. Many teens sext explicit photos of themselves to friends using cell phones, never thinking it'll go further. But once you hit send, you're exposed. You're out there in cyberspace for everyone to see. Sexting, it's dumb, it's dangerous, and it's against the law.
Watching your sister go through withdrawal is the last thing you expect to do. You hope she gets past it, but worry she'll relapse. The story of addiction is all too familiar, but you can change it.
That's 2 out of 3.
If you or someone you know is in recovery from addiction, share your story with the partnership at drugfree.org, because your story can change someone else's.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. And the last part of the show, which I've always loved, because we invite our guests to talk about what they do, things that are important for you to consider. And today the topic is as women in the National Guard. Let's see what we have to talk about to finish us up. Officer Candidate Elliott, first name Megan. You know, I've had to learn a whole lot of designations today. What does that mean?
So I currently am going through a program called Officer Candidate School, so OCS. So for me, I was a NCO for I've been in the military for about 13 years, and I started out as an NCO and decided I wanted to transition to become an officer. So I'm going through that process right now. It's about 16 to 12 months for me. It'll be about a 12-month program. And so
Do you stay in the Guard, or are you moving into full-time military then?
I currently am what is called an active Guard reserve soldier. So it's called AGR. And I'm doing that program simultaneously. So it's a school like any other school that we might go to for advancement, but it's a program to transition from a regular enlisted soldier into the officer corps.
Another example of all the fun stuff you can do. What would advice would you give to young girls that are looking at getting into the Guard or the military in general?
I would say that this, number one, was not a career path that I would have chosen when I was in high school. It was something that when I was in college, I just thought, you know what, I could probably do that. It would help me with my education. I was going to Simpson College, so school was expensive. And it was an opportunity to develop yourself as a leader, because it's one of the things that we all get is leadership skills. And it's also a way to educate yourself and broaden yourself in ways that you'd never imagine.
Very good. Stacy, what advice would you give to someone looking at the military as a career, a woman?
I would think any career field that they're interested in, they could see if it's offered in the military, and most likely it is. There's a lot of connections you can make while in the military, as well as traveling for that career field. You can gain invaluable knowledge from all the people you meet, and just from the tech schools or the MOS schools that you can go to. It's also great because the military is paying for college, so if you wanted to get college paid for while pursuing something that you really wanted to do later on in life, it's a great avenue to
More than a job, I get the idea that there really is sort of kind of a family thing going on here, where people are, even with all the stresses and families, people are working together, and there's a sense of community. Is that how you guys feel?
I would absolutely say that it's, what do they say, that it takes a
village.
It takes a village, and it really does. And I am so thankful for the military families that we've met. So, fellow soldiers that we work with really have impacted our lives and help support and assist, as well as family. Like, I couldn't do it without my parents, for sure, and without a good family support network. But
Thank you. No, that is a great point, and inspires great confidence in how the military is taking care of you. And thank you for joining us today. Keep your eye on Mediacom MC22, your local programming leader.